Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe. I'm casting the Europe Grandmasters. I'm TJ, and I'm joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable.
Yo.
How's it going, man? First time we've cast together on Grandmasters.
This is the first time I haven't been in the host position on Grandmasters as well.
Does it feel good?
It feels normal again.
Are you ready to analyze? What are you talking about? We haven't cast together.
I'm ready to analyze.
Well, coming up next, we have the winners match for Group A for this playoff stage. It's going to be Fenomeno versus Seiko. And this is a cross-division match, which is interesting. Now that these players have played each other throughout the round-robin stage, Fenomeno coming from the Division A, Seiko coming from Division B, and they both finished nearly at the top of their division. Fenomeno in first place, Seiko barely missing out on tiebreakers to Hunter Ace. So this is going to be cool. First time we're seeing a unique matchup in Grandmasters.
And these were the two players that were the most dominant early on in Grandmasters in their respective divisions, where Seiko and Fenomeno at some point were both sitting at an 8-0 match score, and it looked like they were untouchable for quite some time until really that back into the season where they finally started dropping some matches here and there. And so for me, this is really the tale of those two, where they started to drop off matches to the back end, but now it's come clutch time. Now it's the matches where you have to start winning. Each of them now have 2 tries to make it through this group and battle in the finals. And it has to be right now. For Bunny Hopper, he's got that one match that he'll be awaiting the loser of this one in particular, but the whole season is boiled down to this, where they had dominant performances, it got equalized a tiny bit towards the end, and now they got to turn up that heat. They got to find those match wins again.
Yeah, there's a spot at BlizzCon at those global finals on the line, which is a pretty big deal. We are sending one player from each region per season of Grandmasters. So at the end of the year, we'll have that global finals, which will consist of 2 players from Europe, 2 players from Americas, 2 players from Asia Pacific, and 2 players from China. It is the most prestigious event of the year when we're talking about the new system. And the players have been working for the past 7 weeks throughout that double round robin stage to get to this point where they have a chance to fight. So even though to you at home it may feel like a normal week of Grandmasters, it is not.
Yeah, the regular season is over and done with. The rest of the players are now officially in their off-season, where they're waiting with bated breath to see what's going to be happening. And no one this season is facing relegation either. We do not have that added stress on the players that will be in place come Season 2. So the stakes get even higher as we approach that point. But for right now, this is as high as it gets for Grandmasters. We have 1 seat from each region this weekend going to that global finals. That's it. The other 7, they're going to, the other 15 players in Grandmasters, they're going to have to wait till next season if they want their shot.
Yeah, and next season we might see some changes. We're going to see relegation played into the mix. There is going to be just higher stakes in general. Also, it'll be their last chance to qualify for global finals. So the players that maybe slacked off and took it easy for Season 1, they're going to have to step up their game for Season 2. But let's start talking about the winners matches now. We did give Seiko some time since he just played in his initial match for the group. He's kind of regrouping, maybe taking a look at Fenomeno's lineup to see. But it's going to be a pretty similar matchup. Both players are playing decks that they've played a lot throughout the season, that they've been very familiar with over the course of the season. And taking a look at Fenomeno's deck here, he is playing the Cycle Mage.
Yeah, and with Bunny Hopper, he opted to go with the 1 copy of his Halftime Scavenger in the main deck and have a side deck that was dedicated for both the mirror match of Cycle and Mage and for a potential Warrior matchup. Now, in Europe for playoffs, no one brought Warrior to the playoff stage. It is absolutely just not there. It is 4 Cyclone Mages and 2 Rogues. And so for me, I'm pretty firmly in belief that Rogue has the edge in the matchup just due to the consistency of the game plan. It's pressure, it's a removal spell, and you try to get going. And so for Fenomeno here, the fact that he does not have a Mage deck that's in here, if it comes down to a Mage matchup for him at some point, that's a detriment to him. But for right now, he does 2 copies of Halftime Scavenger that's sitting in that secondary deck, which is the one that will come into play versus Seiko. And so that's where in the secondary and tertiary games, he's going to be looking to grab his edges, having that 4-drop that can provide you a bit more life and a bit more tempo.
Yeah, and Seiko, on the other hand, is playing that Burgle Rogue, tempo-oriented. And he does have a secondary deck that has proven just, 10 minutes ago to be very effective against Mage with the Fairy Dragons, Eviscerate, Betrayal, and Walk the Plank. It's not always super consistent because you can get those dead hands where you have all removal. You and Saddle were talking about it's about having minion pressure and then following it up with removal. And I feel like that secondary deck from Seiko, which will come into play it kind of finds that nice balance between the two. But
yeah,
time to get into it.
Yeah, game number 1, a bit removal light for Seiko. It's pretty much limited to, Vendetta, I'd say, being the big one. That's going to make an impact. Is a lone copy of Sap in there as well. But that's what games 2 and 3 are all about, is Mage is weak to early pressure. And Ray of Frost is really one of the only ways they have to take care of stuff. And so what better minion to have that pressure going than Fairy Dragon in that instance?
Yep. All right, well, Seiko on the coin for game 1. Feno not, but I feel like Feno, out of any player in all regions of Grandmasters with Cyclo Mage, is the player that can find the most creative lines. He can play the Cyclo Mage in a lot of different ways. He can play for pressure. He's good at maximizing his minions on the board in the early game, which is not a skill that a lot of Cyclo Mage players have. They tend to focus on, I need my Giant, and I need my Conjurer's Calling, and that's how I win every game. But that's not the case.
Every time I sit down and play Cyclo Mage, I put on a yellow bracelet that says WWFD, or what would Feno do? And every single turn I look at the bracelet and I picture what would Feno do in this situation. And the answer is usually play the minion so it's in play. It looks quite weird and almost too simplistic. But when he starts doing it, you get an idea of where his head's going, because at a certain point this deviates. And I haven't really pinpointed quite when. I think it's more of a feel thing for Feno, where he's getting an idea of what his opponent's hand is. An opponent had an awkward hand that tried to do something and it didn't do it quite as efficiently as possible. But at some point down the way, that play changes. It goes from just play my biggest minion to set up a big turn that tries to start ending the game. And so in the meantime, though, Feno, he quite literally just plays minions on curve and starts trying to fight for it.
Yep. And it works out a lot. A lot of times you have to deviate, especially against Rogue, since Rogue is going to pressure you. Oftentimes you don't have the luxury of being able to just wait for Giant Conjurer's Calling, unless your early hand can fight for the board. But Seiko starting off with a couple of Blink Boxes, picks up Astral Rift and Bonfire Elemental. Not the best. Bonfire Elemental is just a 5/5 that you can play on the board. I don't think he has any elementals in his deck. He does not. So it's not like he's going to get the Battlecry effect off of that. Unless, I don't know, he picks up a Hench Clan Burglar and finds an elemental somewhere.
I could Shadow Step his Bonfire Elemental after the turn after he played it.
And then play it again and draw a card.
Yeah.
Found it.
Played itself as the precursor elemental. And so this is the turn I think that is really key for Feno, that he has Ziliax available right away. Is he A, offsets the pressure that Seiko has placed in trying to get going here. And then B, it moves him right into turns where, he's starting to enter that dangerous Conjurer's Calling territory for Seiko. And that's the situation in game 1 he needs to be in. He has to get stuff in play, disrupt what's happening, and then follow up with a big play.
Yep. And the one benefit that the Ziliax does have, at least in this situation, is that it's also blocking the Blink Box from being able to hit base and then bounce back. He can bounce it back right away with the Waggle pick to essentially heal it and play it for 1 mana. He can try and play minions and maybe have a theoretically better target to bounce back, but having that guarantee gives you that peace of mind, and now you can play Spirit of the Shark alongside of it.
Yeah, I think that's a threatening enough turn for Feno, where he's got to now pay attention to what happens. Whoa. And he wants to find a way to pressure check on the Spirit of the Shark, but at the same time, he doesn't have the mana to play a Giant and Conjurer's Calling. And so the turn for here in Feno's position gets quite tricky, where once again you look down at Seiko's position, he's managed to create pressure, he's managed to answer what Feno has going on. The difference is the Ziliax restored all the pressure that he put out, and so can the value he's generating be enough?
It's tough because at least Rogue nowadays, they do have lots of burst damage in the late game with Waggle Pick, Leroy, Shadow Step, but in order to get pressure going, it's pretty expensive. And they don't have any life gain, so they also have to be worried about the pressure that's the counter pressure that's coming from the Mage's side.
Yeah, it's relegated to like literally a Ziliax and 2 Life Drinkers, which is technically more than the Mage has, but the Mage has freezes and Mirror Image.
Yeah,
which, they're gonna duplicate that effect.
Yeah, the Life Drinker outside of Spirit of the Shark is not like a reliable way because it is expensive. It's expensive life gain. It's 4 mana for 3 health. And the body's not significant. Where it really gets its power is when you combine it with Spirit of the Shark, which he does have on board, and it's not able to be dealt with. But Power of Creation, Luna's Pocket Galaxy picked up from...
Well, the Luna's was drawn.
Luna's was drawn, so
yeah.
Just Power of Creation with the 1 spell.
Yeah, that was a Cyclone for 1.
Sometimes it's about tempo. He doesn't want to get rid of these cards in his hand because they are valuable. Like Ray of Frost, you don't want to dump it just to get random spells from Mana Cyclone.
Yeah, it's serving such a powerful purpose here, right? I mean, he needed to threaten the Shark. That's what the Mana Cyclone does. And, you know, the spell is sort of like, you know, sometimes you get something that's going to do something.
Power of Creation does something.
Sometimes, yeah.
Damage Stegatron.
Sometimes.
Sunwalker.
Sometimes.
Reckless Rocketeer.
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes. That was the Reckless Rocketeer saying sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a song that I was unaware of.
Yeah, it's a classic. It's an Eagles song.
I was about to say, I need to get myself all up on those fat beats.
That's a song, right?
It is. That was actually Reckless Rocketeer singing the song.
Oh, yeah. It's by the Eagles, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Blizzard picked up for Seiko here.
Ooh. That's pretty much in auto keep. He also has Shadow Flame, which is very interesting.
Well, he's also got 10 cards in hand. So we're not getting a fresh draw in Seiko's position next turn. And that is about the worst minion in the game. Yeah.
Dustfall and Aviana, I believe, which makes the first card player's play each turn cost 0.
Yeah, that's right. So your opponent gets the first effect.
Yes, because the first card you're playing is Dustfall and Aviana, and then they get the first effect.
Yeah. And so now I'm looking at the Shadow Flame. Shadow Flame spell damage works. Is that right? Like, if I recall correctly, if you like Shadow Flame to Azure Drake, it would deal 5 damage.
I think so, unless they've changed it.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I'm recalling like 2015 tooltips from like video graphic or like infographics I saw on Twitter.
Yeah.
Back in the day. It's been a long time since I've actually cast the card Shadow Step. But
it does.
Kirin Tor Tricaster is the reason I was looking at that. That offers with Shadow Step, if that's the way it actually works, a way to clear out boards right now. But the board, he does not have a lot of time to clear it out.
No.
You know, Seiko spent his whole turn trying to generate some value and something to do. Fino instantaneously explodes on the board 15 attack. You have to do something now in Seiko's spot. This is why the removal comes in games 2 and game 3.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where Rogue, as soon as they have a turn where they have to play for value and the Mage takes advantage of it, everything that they want to do is way too expensive. A Mage can play Mountain Giant plus Conjurer's Calling for 6 mana. They can also play for 5 mana. They can play for 4 mana sometimes with double elemental evocation. For 4 mana, you can play a Life Drinker.
And for 3 more, you could play an Evil Miscreant.
Which is a 1/4 and a 3/3 that dealt 3 damage to your opponent, healed you for 3. That's much worse, in my opinion, than an 8/8 and a 7/8.
That's where Spirit of the Shark comes in. Now it's 6 damage and 6 health that you gain with that one.
Still doesn't help you fight back on the board.
Yeah, it's a little tough. You know, you're still facing down Grave Harbor Mountain Giant, and that's going to be more as well. There's a certain point where there's no more fighting against Mountain Giants. You actually just, you die.
You die. Once you reach that critical mass of Mountain Giants.
I am quite surprised that Fino chose to double trade in this instance. Like, the Henge Clan Burglar makes sense. I feel like the Shark is just not doing anything anymore, though.
Yeah, it feels like it might be too expensive for the Shark to be of impact, but
he does have another Conjurer's Calling in hand, so I guess that the damage he delivers to face actually doesn't necessarily mean anything, because the Conjurer's Callings will just represent lethal throughout the game.
Also, he just saw that Seiko picked up 2 lackeys. If they're Kobold lackeys, then you don't want to have a giant dealt with essentially for free.
You don't want to lose to like a bunch of random 4 damage to face lackeys and shadow steps and stuff. Like, there are still ways he could lose the game to randomly generated cards and lackeys, and that's fine. Yeah. And so just make a bunch of giants, freeze the thing, and say, deal with it.
Also, Fino knows right now that Seiko's hand is 6 randomly generated cards and 2 lackeys. So he's basically playing around a maximum range of possibilities. Also, the 2 cards that Seiko's holding in his left that actually are rogue cards in his deck, he's been holding on to for a long time. Quartz Elemental.
Well, I'm looking specifically at the Shadow Flame with the Quartz Elemental. Like, that's so likely to stay there, right? Honestly, I don't know the Tricaster Shadow Flame interaction. Like, you mentioned it might have been changed, and now I'm second-guessing myself. So it's Blizzard this turn, and then next turn for 9 mana, you play Kirin Tor Tricaster and Shadow Flame to clear out. Like, that's the game plan, right?
Yeah, it has to be. And honestly, it looks like a pretty solid game plan. I'm sure that it works that way. I'm trying to think back to my handlock days when, like, Blood Mage Down.
Yeah.
and you get the extra damage. You only don't get the extra damage from or from board clear effects like that when it's not.
Like Betrayal says the minion deals the damage. Shadow Flame deals the damage equal to the minion's attack.
Yeah. Yeah, or like Blade Flurry, where it's like the weapon dealing the damage and not you. I don't know. There's some weird cases where it doesn't do damage, but in most use cases, it does. At least in the past, it has. It's just
either way.
I haven't seen a control Warlock in the metagame that's run Shadow Flame in a long time. We had even Warlock, but that very rarely ran Shadow Flame, and even when it didn't run Spell Power.
I mean, even if it boils down to it, if he's uncertain that that's the case, you know, I'm not seeing like.
He doesn't have an option.
It's like, well, I'm looking at like the Leroy Shadow Flame, for instance. Like all the minions for Feno are at 6 health right now.
Yeah.
And there's no way for him to fend this off. I'm pretty sure it does work with spell damage, the Shadow Flame, but I'm not certain. Either way, that Shadow Flame is a blowout right now.
Yeah. He could just do Leroy plus Shadow Flame, and that works 100% of the time.
Yeah, why risk it, right?
I mean, the Quartz Elemental is doing nothing, whereas Leroy could potentially finish the game. So I think that if it in that case, if it does work.
Oh, this face. Yeah, that's actually a pretty mild reaction for what I expected from Feno in this spot, too.
It's the playoffs. You got to keep yourself calm and collected.
This is it. He's got to pop off.
Yep. Well, he could pop off. I mean, pretty much everything in his deck costs like less than 4 right now because all of his minions are 1 or 0.
Oh, my.
And Frost Nova.
2 Sorcerer's Apprentices to go with the Frost Nova now. So now pretty much everything in the deck does cost less than 4 mana. In fact, the only thing I'm thinking that would not at this point... No, everything does. Everything
costs 2 mana or less. Everything costs 1 mana or less with 2 Sorcerer's Apprentice. Because he's played Luna's Pocket Galaxy, all of his minions cost 1 or 0 in the case of the Giants. And he's got 2 Sorcerer's Apprentices on board. The highest spell he has is 3 mana.
So that Luna was just set up to actually be the complete pop-off, and that's it.
And he could still keep playing spells with Archmage Antonidas.
Yeah, that's really bad news for Seiko. And so I think what Feno's thinking of right now is, do I want to play Antonidas or do I want to Conjurer's Calling away the Kaligos, the 4/12, and try to get bigger minions?
I think you just Archmage Antonidas. Rogue does not have board-wide clears, even if they get random generation. Vanish is rotated. He just played a Shadow Flame. Even if he has a second Shadow Flame, it's not enough.
Just keep going. Frostbolt the face, why not? That turn was insane, and so Feno prioritizing killing the lackeys so that way Ice Bear and Togwaggle shenanigans can't come into effect.
So Nathan, he had 10 mana and an empty board last turn.
And now he's got 1 mana floating and a full board and a full hand.
Yeah, and for the full hand are fireballs, and everything else costs very little mana. Seiko is quite dead.
No random way to get out of it with that one. That was the only thing he could look for. So even with the Shadow Flame there, it's just Feno being able to have time to play the Luna's Pocket Galaxy discounted the deck so much that with 2 Sorcerer's Apprentices, man, you could do whatever you wanted. And picks up game 1.
Big win. A very big win for Feno. I think he is at a slight disadvantage once you move to the secondary decks for both players. But honestly, in game 1, after watching this matchup so many times over the course of Grandmasters, in the primary decks, unless there was some crazy text that one player had a solid read on the other in primaries, it was pretty even, with maybe Rogue having a slight favorite.
Yeah, and so what I want to do is look at what made the difference in that game. A Banana Buffoon on curve, which Seiko respected, he traded into, rightfully so.
Yep.
A Sandbinder, then, to follow up that curve. A thing to do in play that kept your hand size afloat and fetched you a card that you might need later on. And then a Ziliax killing a 3/3 in that instance. So Feno got back up to 30 health. He cleared out and fought for board and forced Seiko to have to fight in a way that he basically had no pressure early on because of the Ziliax restoring health. those things led to all the safe turns that Fino was able to have in that situation and bought him the opportunity to do whatever he wanted at the end of that game.
Yep.
And so that's what it tells me it's about for Mage. Fight for the board very aggressively early on, but don't do it in a way that uses so many resources that you have nothing left to follow up with.
Yeah, I think a couple of the big turns are just Seiko not having pressure on the turn. He played Spear of the Shark plus 1 mana Blink Fox.
Yeah.
Let Fino have a very weak turn of just mana cycle with 1 spell. But even the recognition of I don't need to kind of go all out here. I just need to get something on the board, protect my life total with Mirror Image, get 1 spell for Mana Cyclone, and hold on to this big swing turn. So as soon as the Rogue is in a position where they have to play reactive, yes, the Shadow Flame and the Leroy, incredible. But when you're playing reactive like that, it means you're not pressuring, and the Mage can do so much more with less mana. So
Indeed.
we did get word that both players are moving to secondary decks for the second and possibly third matchup. Not really a surprise. Fino has basically just taken out Banana Buffoon, Archmage, Tonitis, and added in halftime Scavengers.
Yeah, he's brought a deck that that in his secondary and tertiary decks, he doesn't have a way that's dedicated to fight the Mage mirror match. And oftentimes the slots in that deck are quite tight anyway, and there's not necessarily something you want to remove. It kind of depends on who you ask and what you're expecting. And so 2 copies of Halftime Scavenger go in, an Archmage Antonitis, and a Banana Buffoon come out of the deck. And so the Halftime Scavenger is meant to fight in a very specific way, which is A, your opponent plays Spirit of the Shark, you respond by playing Halftime Scavenger. They can't kill it, and you get to kill Spirit of the Shark. But B, it also just serves as a stealth minion that is doing exactly all the stuff that I described that Fino was able to do in game number 1. You fight for board for pressure, you protect your life total a little bit, and you get to the big turn that matters without using too many resources. That card does that exactly, and it's really a very unique card in that Riot, I think, that serves that purpose. We saw Bunny Hopper include one in his main deck, where then he dedicated one of his side decks to a Cyclone Mage. Fino going the other way. He says, I want 2 Halftime Scavengers, but I don't want them immediately.
You can take a look at Seiko's deck here as well, taking out Evil Cable Rat, Snip Snap, Spear the Shark, Zilliax, and Sea Giant to make room for Betrayal, Eviscerate, Double Fairy Dragon, and Walk the Plank. So he's taken out a lot of the utility/value generation cards with like Evil Cable Rat, Spear the Shark, which Spear the Shark's great, but honestly, like we saw in the last game, when you have to just like play it early on in the game to get value, it gives the Mage free turns that you can't afford, and he's added in Fairy Dragon. So good against Mage. Can't ping it, you can't Ray of Frost it, it's just going to keep trucking you for 3. And just that removal stuff to kind of back up. Last game he had to use Leroy plus Shadow Flame to clear a board full of Giants. This game he has Betrayal, so he can much more easily fight through big board states and have mana to do extra things like develop pressure. That's what you want to see if you're Seiko.
Generic value pressure. That's what Rogue is about in games 2 and 3 of this matchup. You play some minions, they play an important thing, you blow it up, and you keep attacking.
Yep.
The one cool deviation I think that Seiko has is that rather than bring 2 copies of Walk the Plank in the secondary, he's brought 1 Walk the Plank and 1 Eviscerate. So he's got a removal-like effect, but it can also serve the purpose of being damage if you're just winning by so much that you need to get something through.
Yep.
And I really like that choice from Seiko in this one. And for Fino, responding to the Fairy Dragon very aggressively, I think this is absolutely the right call, where Fino is desperately trying to contest his Fairy Dragon, and Seiko has a wonderful response by being able to kill it. You're not happy to use a Vendetta on it, but you are happy to protect a Fairy Dragon.
Yes.
And so for Fino now, the question is, do I want to be able to play Luna's Pocket Galaxy next turn, or do I need to battle for board? And I think that battle for board is something that he can pretty easily land on at this spot.
Yeah, Luna's Pocket Galaxy is kind of a luxury against Rogue. If you have the board and you have the time to be able to play it, then it's good.
He gets both in this situation, actually, where he's able to battle for board with the Cinderstorm. He picks off the Fairy Dragon, and now he can coin the Pocket Galaxy and possibly have 2 minions the turn afterwards with Halftime Scavenger plus a minion draw. This is really cool.
I mean, not the best Cinderstorm.
He could have killed both minions.
He could have killed both.
Not killing both made this interesting to me. Zilliax drawn as well. Seiko's in trouble. He does not have much to go off right now. And that will help, though.
Oh, yeah. Draw 2 cards and play a beefed up Edwin Van Cleef. It'll only gain... Okay. DVDing. It would have only gained +2/+2. Edwin Van Cleef with the Spirit of Shark compounds. So it would have been a 6/6 in that instance.
Wants more, and I don't blame him.
Yeah. I mean, next turn he could play 3 lackeys and then play the Edwin Big Cleave, but Ziliax is going to deal with this quite nicely. And this is honestly looking kind of similar to Feno's last game, where he just played a minion early to try and contest. Last game it was the Mana Cyclone, or sorry, the Banana Buffoon. This game it was the Mana Cyclone, trying to force resources out of Seiko, and then stabilize to a point where he's got Luna's Pocket Galaxy rolling in. He'll be able to play anything that he draws.
So Seiko now able to fend off the Big Giant's turn. The key for me is going to be Feno being able to fend off giant turns in general. And when I don't say giant, I don't mean like the cards giants. I mean like a Stargazer Luna kind of turn. That's where I feel like Seiko is going to have the most trouble. Turncoat Contract, I believe, is the adjacent minions. Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that one's very good.
That one is honestly the best in this matchup, with it an honorable award going to the one that gives a poisonous minion.
Yeah.
Because then you can answer the following threat after as well.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah, I said not necessarily Giant's turns. This one is a Giant's turn. But it's not a Conjurer's Calling one. And so your removal, like Betrayal, is only good if your opponent has multiple similarly sized things in play. The Turncoat Contract is pretty much always good, but you don't necessarily want to burn it. Feno going to spend max mana.
This will be 3 spells generated. Some very good ones. Fireball and Polymorph, I think, are too expensive to use in the matchup, but it will give him ways to deal with Edwin if this giant gets dealt with.
Yeah,
but Arcane Intellect is the big one.
I'm looking at Fireball just being a way to finish the game. Like if you secure any amount of damage, really.
Okay. I mean, he cut Archmage into Tinnitus from the deck, so maybe that additional burn damage is going to be necessary. But
Another
I think
Frost Nova drawn as well.
Oh, jeez.
So all the Mana Cyclones are gone. So like the shenaniganry on random stuff is limited to Magic Trick now.
Speaking of, a pair of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious about this spot. You know, what's the best setup Feno actually gets? Because the question he's being asked right now is A, can you stop the pressure? Then B, once you stop the pressure, you have to deliver counter pressure, because you're not ending the pressure on the opponent's side, you're just delaying it. So he's got to find a way to counter punch and to stop pressure at the same time.
Oh, wow. I was honestly thinking that Polymorph onto the Edwin, take the 8 damage this turn, and then save the Frost Novas. Because every turn that you're...
Feno shakes his head.
Yeah, every turn that you're not using Frost Nova is like an extra turn that you'll have later on in the game, where you could be taking more damage if you didn't have access to the Frost Nova. So when I'm playing this deck, especially against Rogue, any turn where I don't have to use Frost Nova, I try not to. Now that gets dangerous when you factor in like Waggle Pick and Leroy, but also clogging up your opponent's board with smaller minions makes it awkward for Rogue, because they can't kill off their own stuff, and if they're like maximized on pressure, it can make some of their turns awkward.
Just like you.
And now Feno just kind of has to go for something big. Picks up Ice Barrier, which is a nice way to stall for time.
Research Project's good.
It's great, especially considering Seiko has 9 cards in hand.
My hand is too full.
Ray of Frost gets drawn. Feno, he might be having one of these. He might be having one of these big turns. It slows down right at that spot. He's going to Conjurer's Calling, and Betrayal is awaiting for Seiko right now. But his board's about to get frozen out, and so his turn is going to be limited to just spells and weapons. That's it.
Again, I kind of like the second Conjurer's Calling and a Ray of Frost here.
My hand is too full.
Shadow Step gets burned away too. That would have allowed Seiko to perhaps do something with this turn in minion development. But right now, he's got too many cards in hand to use Wondrous Wand.
Oh, wow. That's first world Hearthstone problems right there.
Embarrassment of riches. You remember the old the Hand of Midas touch thing? The story where he touches everything, turns to gold, and then that ends up being a liability to him because he's just got too much gold.
Well, yeah, I could have told him that.
That's what I'm saying. I would be like, first of all, Midas, everything you touch, why not just like anything you want to turn into gold, you can turn into gold? Like, you really didn't think about that very well.
Yeah.
Seiko did think about this. So it's not like, you know, quite exactly like the Midas thing, but you get the idea. He's got too many cards.
Everybody knows to wish for more wishes.
Can't do that. Isn't that rule number 1 from the genie?
I don't think it was a genie. I don't remember the story, but I think it was like a centaur or something.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Centaurs have different rules than genies. Everybody knows that.
Rub the magic saddle, and there's a centaur.
Yep.
Yeah, tank 7. Respect. The way Fenomeno wins is counterpunching. All you have to do is stop him from counterpunching.
Yeah, he knows that there's no Archmage Antonitis in the deck. Actually, he doesn't know.
You could assume.
You could assume, but
Yeah.
he hasn't seen a halftime scavenger yet. And nope, not yet. Doesn't know yet, but he will know. As soon as he plays his halftime scavenger, he'll know.
He knows.
Yes. In theory, he knows.
Yeah.
But the facts are, he doesn't know.
As long as it
Now he
keeps
knows.
out arrows.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. That halftime scavenger is going to have the biggest pop-off I have ever seen in my life. Seiko's just got 18 damage in this spot.
Whew.
And that's if the Waggle Pick returns nothing of value to your hand.
That's a lot. Is board space a limitation now?
Well, he can walk the plank of minion.
He could. That's true.
Why didn't he attack with the sheep first? Like 3 of these attacks didn't happen before he swung that Waggle Pick. Was there an outcome that gave him specifically lethal this turn was my thought.
Wait a second. He can trade in the 1/1s into this.
That's why he didn't. That's so smart.
And then he needs 10 damage. He does not have 10 damage, at least by my count.
But he's got a lot.
Yeah. He can deal 10 with the 2 SI7 agents.
Oh, that is so smart.
He does have a lethal possibility. Okay. Reckless Rocketeer.
When the whelps just become pure liability on your side, it is quite rare that I have seen that happen.
The future is ours.
All right, it's time to go.
He has no Frost Novas left in the deck, though. He's already played 3. He played the 2 from his deck plus a 1 randomly generated one, I believe.
Still Ray of Frost, right? There's still Mountain Giant Conjurers calling stuff.
Yep.
There's a Ray of Frost up top.
Has the second half of the other one in his hand as well, but no Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Mirror image.
Tools of creation. Behold the tools.
Oh
Giant.
my, is it happening?
Behold the tools of creation.
So 5 mana left. He can play Mountain Giant, Conjurer's Calling. That would fill up his board and have mana for 2 Ray of Frost on.
So you got to think about where you want your Giants to flank.
Runs out on
I think in middle of Mirror Image.
Behold
Well,
the
that's I think that's how
tools
you
of
die. Is
creation.
the mirror images?
Ah,
picked
yeah.
off.
The Mirror Images get picked off.
Behold the tools of creation.
And actually-
Look at this turn. This was nothing in play. This was a halftime scavenger. He's just fully protected now.
Conjurer's Calling just for a 50% chance to turn something into a taunt.
Well, he's got like 1 million more copies behind that.
He's just trying to protect his life total as aggressively as possible. He saw Leroy last turn, so he's saying, just don't get through this line of taunts. He even has an Ice Barrier.
I wonder.
Can he get through the Mountain Giant?
I don't see how Seiko can live. Like, he's going to live for a turn? Maybe?
Well, Fino's out of stuff, so if Seiko can kill that Mountain Giant, he knows that hand is Conjurer's Callings, a randomly generated spell, and 1 extra mage spell in hand. That's both Giants used.
That's a good point.
But I don't think he can get through it. That's the problem.
He doesn't have the mana, right?
Doesn't have the mana and the board space. Like, both limiting factors in the discussion. Testing for Splitting Image.
This guy's toast.
19 damage on the side of Fino. He's got 1 card left in his deck.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And this is going to draw it.
As long as it
He
keeps
needs to draw it.
Behold the tools of
It's Khadgar.
creation.
That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
'Cause now he gets to trade off Luna. He gets to trade off Banana Buffoon. He gets to trade off Giant. He gets to play Khadgar and Conjurer's Calling as many times as he wants. And so the math here is what can you die to,
Oh.
and how do you best play around that?
So he has 2 chances to go for taunts. But the amount of taunting is limited. All right, Grave Horrors. More Grave Horrors.
Playtime. Stop. Playtime.
Time runs out on me.
I want one more. Fino's effectively at 12 due to the fatigue damage he'll take next turn, but he's effectively at 20 due to the ice barrier he's got up.
More taunts.
And honestly, I think you might have been happier if those were 2 Giants, but either way, Seiko has to have a miracle happen this turn. Is Shadow Step perhaps that miracle? I'm thinking Betrayal and Betrayal alone can stop this.
Yeah, so he needs to Shadow Step the Heistbearer Togwaggle, dig for Wondrous Wand with a Lackey, find Betrayal, and then pick apart this board because Fino is out of things. Also, an Eviscerate still left in the deck, which can help clean things up.
Life Drinker gets found. Backstab. Can he kill enough?
I don't... He may be able to kill enough to survive from his perspective, but Fino has the Fireball as that last remaining randomly generated card. He can heal up with Life Drinker.
1 Giant gone. He has Witchy Lackey plus Goblin Lackey, so he can rush in a big minion when this is said and done as well, but I just don't think it's enough.
Needs a big 8-drop.
That's a big 8-drop. I just don't think it's enough. Ping 21 plus, yeah, Fino's got it.
That's enough. That means Fino gonna take the series 2-0 over Seiko and move on to the semifinals on Sunday.
Able to get out of this one, and that's the benefit you get from being top seed in the group, is that you had 2 tries straight up to make it out. Gets it done on his first try, which means that Seiko now, because he won his first match versus Bunny Hopper, this was the first of those 2 tries.
Yep.
So he has to face Bunny Hopper again now in order to get out of the group. So if Bunny Hopper wins that one, he's going to be through. If Seiko wins that one, he's going to be through. But for Fino, the work all season long in that top record meant that it was the first try is the one that can get you out. And he capitalized on that, and he did it in the same way he's been doing all season long, dominating people with Cyclone Mage.
He's got a couple more steps to go, though, until he makes it to that global finals at BlizzCon. Has to make it to semifinals and finals, which a little bit more added onto that since it's best of 5. So his work is not done, but he's made 1 step towards that goal. And we are now, we do have Fino on the line. Hey, Fino, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey guys, what's up?
Hey, man, this is the first time I've interviewed you. I don't cast Europe
Hey,
ever.
TJ.
What's up?
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
What are you doing here in the EU neighborhood?
I don't know. I'm just casting with Admirable.
He was on the side of the road. We just picked him up.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I was walking to work today. Admirable's like, TJ, get in. And that's why I'm here. All right, Fino, let's get down to business here. So you made it to the semifinals. Talk to me a little bit about how this felt. Did it feel like a normal Grandmasters day to you, or did you kind of feel the pressure going into today?
I actually kind of felt the pressure today. I was so relaxed. I was like perfect before everything started, and then I log into Hearthstone, and then Seiko messages me, "I'm stressed today," and then I got stressed too. I don't know what happened. Like I was perfectly fine, and then he messaged me that he was stressed, and after that I was kind of stressed also because I don't know. I wasn't really happy with my performance lately, so I feel like I kind of had to prove to myself that I can, play at the level that I played in the first couple of weeks, but. I mean, I just drew the nuts every game, so I guess you can just do that instead.
That's one of the best ways to get over nerves is to draw the nuts.
Yeah.
You mentioned you felt pressured, but it looked to me like you brushed off the Leroy Shadowflame turn pretty darn well. I would say in relation to how you normally react to things like, your opponent having a 2-drop or whatever.
I mean, I was expecting it, Admirable. Like I've seen very bad things happening from this thing. I was ready for the shrink ray after everything. I was ready for shrink ray and twisting nether. I'm not joking here, but I mean, I had an idea that she could be setting something like a clear up, but I think my hand was so insanely good with Luna's Pocket Galaxy that I felt like I could beat anything that game. So I wasn't really stressed about it.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how your preparation went this week. You ended up going with Cycle Mage, which has been a pick that you've had a lot of success with already this year. But did anything change as far as prep goes, considering you're going into playoffs now?
I mean, for me, there's not really much to prep anymore. It's like there are 2 decks, pick one, whatever you feel is the best. And like at the start, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a believer in Pocket Galaxy, but this is the one thing that my teammate Boar was right about. He's rarely right, by the way. That's why I'm mentioning it. But I tested it more and more, and it was actually so good because it lets you play the game differently sometimes. Like for example, last game I think I would have been completely out if I didn't go in the Galaxy there, and I don't know. It kind of changes the playstyle of the deck, and it makes it easier. Also, it's fair to say I think. And I don't know. I think it helps against everything. And I think the mage right now is just. I think it can beat Rogue. I think it's still pretty close, but for me, it's the best deck, and I feel more comfortable with it. So I just had to go with it.
All right. Well, it worked out today, and Fino, a big congratulations on the win. And we'll see you on Sunday for the semifinals.
Yeah.
Good luck.
See you then, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
We need the luck. Really badly.
Yeah. I always love how players at the end of interviews, they just kind of repeat what you said.
Yeah. As long as you don't get hit with the "have a safe flight," you too. Nothing feels as bad as that one does. And I know for a fact that it feels really bad because it happens to me every time I go through the airport.
Good luck in your matches on Sunday. You too. I guess we are casting matches, so it works out. But Fino moves on to the semifinals. He'll be playing on Sunday. That's the next time he has to play. But that does set us up for one more match from Europe today. From that Group A here in the playoffs. It's Seiko versus Bunny Hopper, that rematch from earlier on this morning.
That's right. It's double jeopardy time for Bunny Hopper and for Seiko as well. Seiko now has to defeat Bunny Hopper in order to get out of this group. And so, Seiko, he won his first match. He missed that first try that he earned as a result of that. So now he's got one more. For Bunny Hopper, this is it. He doesn't get that 2 tries at it. It's this one is do or die for him. And so if Seiko capitalized on that second try, that's the big marker to make. But for now, what I'm looking at is that, the mage rogue matchup has flipped back and forth for Seiko on this one. I do think that Fino's hands were substantially better than Bunny Hopper's were. I think Bunny Hopper's hands were a bit on the weak side. And so I think if that's what you have to capitalize on, so be it. I think Rogue is a game of consistency versus what your opponent's power can be. You're trying to beat them when they don't have that power.
Yeah, but Bunny Hopper has to be getting a little bit of confidence, at least in his deck. It's slightly different from Fino's, but he has Pocket Galaxy in main deck also. He sees Fino 2-0 Seiko. Maybe Seiko's rattled. Maybe Bunny Hopper feels better about going into this rematch than he did. Could be a difference maker. Confidence is key.
I mean, this is a spot that Bunny Hopper's been in a number of times as well. To hear Fino's mention that he gets stressed, and it was partially because of Seiko telling him that he was feeling the pressure a bit. You know, that's something to me that Bunny Hopper's expressed that he feels.
Yeah.
But I don't think it affects him one bit. A, because of the experience he's had. He's had a ton of it where the high pressure matches are concerned. And then B, it's just kind of the person he is. I think the pressure motivates him.
Well, we'll see. That rematch is going to be coming up in a few moments. But in the meantime, we're going to have to go to a quick break. But don't go anywhere. More here from the Europe Grandmasters playoffs right after this.